Hello, I'm Oral Gibbs, and welcome to Oral Gibbs Live. And with me on the program, I have the former president of St. Martin, President Daniel Gibbs. How are you doing, sir?
Good morning, Oral. I'm pretty fine, thank you. Happy to be here. I know you reserved this for the longest times, let's say since last year, even if
Yeah,
it was 2 days ago.
right.
But yes, I'm happy to be back in your location and to have this discussion with you. And Happy New Year to all our radio and TV viewers. I wish you all the best for this new year.
Well, thank you for accepting the invitation, and all the best to you and your family for the New Year. 2022 was a rough year.
hmm
Um, for you now, you're out of office a little less than a year, right?
Since March.
Yeah.
hmm
How has it been for you?
Well, that's certain things happen in life. You win, you lose, and you rebound. The most important, as I always say, I love this quote, is not how many times you fall, but how fast you get back up. And I think that's the immediate reflex that I got after the election. And yes, I took the time to reflect on certain things, to rebuild myself professionally, to know exactly in which direction I would like to go and how to go about it. But also, as you said, out of office but still elected because I'm part of the opposition,
Right.
and I sit in executive council and also island council. And yes, I wanted to give also the time to the actual government to proceed in their first step without being too critic on the first year, which I would have loved that it would be the same during my mandate. Give me the time to put in place my policies with all what happened, Irma, COVID, and it was kind of complicated. But I follow the rules as I always do as a method, and I think that it was just normal to give them the chance to proceed in this first year and then wait until they put in place their budget, because actually they're working on the budget that we practically prepared, because it was the preparation of 2000 end of 2021 that was making the budget of 2022.
So,
So it was fair enough to say that you give the time to see how things are going to turn out and put in place.
when you took office as president,
hmm
the budget was a surplus or deficit at the time?
No, I mean, when you vote a budget, they always voted balanced, but in reality, there was debts, and there was a couple million debts, exactly, because there was loans and there was a certain amount of things that were pending, which sometimes can be normal in a collectivity, but the situation was not at the very best, and our challenge with the mandate that we were giving was not only to recuperate the debt, but also to put in place, I would say, a policy that will permit St. Martin to reboost economically. Then after the rest of the story, you know it. We got Hurricane Irma 3 months after, and as I said, we had to start back with a blank sheet and rewrite our vision of development, because after Irma, nothing was the same. So that was part of the complication. But as I say, when you see how we began, what we went through, whether it was the Hurricane Irma, whether it was the COVID situation, whether it was the strikes, whether it was the PPR in demonstration, whether there was always something every year in order to block the function, and whether it was natural catastrophe or whether it was human management to block certain advancement that we wanted to put in place. Nevertheless, I think that my team and myself were proud to be able to show that the collectivity that we took at the beginning and the one that we left at the end was totally different. And although all what we went through, we left a positive situation. The banks of the collectivity was an accident, 17 million. Plus
Surplus of 70 million?
surplus
Yeah.
of 17 million, plus we put in place a plan. I said it during the campaign the whole time, an investment plan of 153 million, on 3 years based on 2020, 2021, 2022, and 2023, and we were already working on 2023 to 2026, 27, 28.
So that was 153 million.
152 million.
52.
You see, what happened is that after EOMA, immediately with the state, we started working on the financial situation. I stayed 2 years without generating incomes from local taxes, so we were living on subvention of state, and we had to discuss with the state our way of managing those subvention, because they don't give you money and you do whatever you want with it. So we put in a plan that is called le plan de convergence, which is a plan between state and the collectivité, stating that the funds that we will be getting, where we will be placing them, and what we will be promoting exactly in terms of the reconstruction. So not having incomes for 2 years, as I said, in local tax, not augmenting or putting new tax for 5 years, we still manage to sign that plan with state, prepare the financing, ensure that the financing will be there no matter what. That's why today I can say, and I said it again during the whole time of my campaign, whoever would be coming back in government, they will find a positive situation with a plan already to execute, whether it was the schools, whether it was the library, whether it was the fixing back of the roads, whether it was whatever was to be done. There was a plan of 153 million, and you don't do that in an overnight, because you have to seek national funds from state. You have to seek European funds, because we are part of Europe, so we have to defend our application, our files, to be able to be eligible to those fundings. So as I said, whatever can be quick in the private sector takes a lot more time in the public sector. So I see and I heard the impatience of the population wanting to see building, wanting to see roads fixed, wanting to see everything done in one snap of a finger. But in real life, that doesn't happen. The thing is that today, all that has been prepared. And as I said, we planted the seeds. And today, those that are there can have the harvest. And that's exactly what happened, because you don't reach in government and then immediately you execute something that fell from the sky. Certain things was already prepared. And the fixing of the roads was a logic continuation of what we put in place in our master plan, because we had to put the wires on the ground, we had to fix the sewage, the water, I would say, pipes. So all that takes time, takes finance, and I wasn't going to open roads and then fix them before, open them, and we fix them again. I would be spending double. Yeah. So I preferred wait until everything was fixed on the ground to be able to start repairing. We did start the repairing of the roads. We did put a certain amount of things in process, and what is happening today is just the natural continuation. And I could go on and on with the library and the plans that was put in place. The two college that's going to be done in French Quarter and La Savane. Yeah. There was 2 college that was programmed that we voted already. The starting of the work. There was also the 2 swimming pool, and I don't know if they're going to take place, if this local government will continue the plans of the 2 pools that were programmed for La Savane, because I heard talking about them subventioning a pool in front of Alberic Stadium. On the Bayside, they were giving a subvention to a private group, because it's not the collectivité who is doing it there, but a private group, and they're just, of what I understood, putting a subvention to help them put it in place. But it has nothing to compare with what we programmed for La Savane, which was 2 pools of 25 meters each for the small kids that didn't know how to swim, and a bigger pool for competition, the schools, but also for leisure during the weekend, when people who don't have the means to go to the beach, or maybe go to restaurants, or maybe then they can have an area where they can come and take some good times with the family. So all that was a process that we worked. We did the studies, because people always say, yeah, another study again. Yes, but when you use public fundings, you need to justify how you're spending the money, because the money is not yours, the money is public. So every cent that you spend, you need to justify the way you're going to spend it, and by justifying, you need to show a feasibility study stating that the investment that you're going to do is feasible. So that's the way you don't waste government money. So that was the process for 4 years, and overall, it was hard. It was sometimes very difficult because when you have obstructions such as strikes, such as blockage, such as all what we went through for 4 years, you call them, name them, and everybody knows what I'm talking about. Well, it's difficult to advance, even though we still got to put certain things in place so that today it can be delivered. And you know what? If it's done with another government, well, thank God, because at the end of the day, it's for a population. At the end of the day, it's for the development of the economy of a country. So that's my main concern, and that's why I said for a while I kept a back seat and see how things were going. And the day they'll be voting their own budget, then we will probably have some questions to put on the table.
Okay, in case you've just joined us, this is Oral Gibbs Live. I'm speaking with President Gibbs. He's former president of French St. Martin, and speaking with him about how things are going and how they left office. Because you know something, President Gibbs, when people speak about the current president, it's as if everything that's happening right now, he did it, not you.
Well, that's the game of politics. But I think people are not foolish to realize that you don't just reach in and then find things there, and then
and those who believe it,
find things. Yeah. Some believe it, but the majority of people knows through all the years, all the announcements that were done, and the work that was put in place to be able to reach to what we are here today. If a government comes in and starts spending money, it's because there was money in the bank. And that means that the previous government left that there. So for 5 years, we have been doing savings to be able to respect a contract that we had with the state, with the unions, with Europe, because they don't give you money if you don't reduce in your cost spending. And all I see today is a lot of spending, and everywhere we reduce our spending to be able to put aside, because the years to come might be difficult. I say might because I do hope that things will be smooth. But when you see the crisis in the world, when you see the war in Europe, when you see the augmentation of the fuel, when you see all what we're experiencing today, I think it is also wise to be able to say that we will put aside or we will reduce on our cost of spending, because tomorrow will be difficult to pay the employees. Tomorrow will be difficult to invest in certain development that are needed, and that's the reason why in our strategy we got to find a way to involve state and Europe in the developments that we were doing, because we got to win the cases where our projects were eligible to those type of financing, but at the same time we were putting aside to be able to survive in the difficult years.
Let me ask you that this is just hypothetical. If the collective, they cannot pay taxes, the state will step in and pay? I mean, pay workers' salaries. Will the state step in and pay collective workers?
Yes, which means that in our system, because we are Article 74, the state cannot take over commands. But that's only technically. Where they do it still is that if the collectivity cannot pay, they will have to interact in the budget of the collectivity. Maybe yes, maybe no, but most of the time they would do it. And when they do it, they give their condition, which means that they will be fixing the budget and not the collectivity, because the one who's paying is the one who has control. So the same way after Hurricane Irma, we had to fight our way through because we were living off the subvention of the state. That was not what was said in the news. 500 million. that was just a storytelling. The reality is that we got something like 23 million, 24 million in total for the 5 years injected. But we made a use of it by augmenting those amounts with European fundings. Thank God to Europe that we got to be able to put in place a certain amount of policies. But yes, that's how states comes in. They give you latitude to spend, And then after, when you're in need, they come back and they say, okay, you have competence in fiscality and finance, but if I'm giving you money, I'm telling you how you're going to spend it. So that puts you in a situation where you don't have total control of where you want to go, and they have that leverage on you. So those are the things that I was fighting to get our territory out of, so that we can define and we can direct our own destiny. When I hear ministers come and say, oh, we're going to help you, we heard those language for years. Not only me, the previous government, the governments before, whether it's from Albertine, whether it's from Aline Henson, whether it's from whoever was president or mayor at the time. We saw that if we weren't doing it on our own, there were not much things that we were able to accomplish. And when I say today, thank God that we had Europe, is because we went and we fought directly to Europe, the help that we needed for our development. So these are the kind of things that the population needs to have in mind. It's not just a fact of wanting or not wanting to do things. It's a fact that there's a lot of, I would say, the side effect that you have to be careful of, so that you don't involve yourself in a situation that you will be dominated by those who are financing you.
Well, in case you've just joined us, I'm Oral Gibbs. This is Oral Gibbs Live. We're on Hot 99.9 FM radio station, YouTube, Facebook. My guest on the program is President Gibbs, former president of French St. Martin, and we're here speaking with him about his whole political career. When you look at where you are today, and you're sitting in the Executive Council, right? Now, the Executive Council is made up of the ruling party, and you have how many members in?
Well, I had 5 members. It's based on the score that you have during the election at the end, and 1 quit, as you know, and so we're 4, but nevertheless, it gives the result after the election. So I was due to 1 seat in Executive Council, which I'm holding actually. And then I had 5 seats in Island Council, and now we have only 4 seats because one of the members became independent. But that's a situation which is kind of in comparison with the previous mandate that I was president of. It's kind of the same situation.
All right. And in the Executive Council, where you're the only person
from opposition,
can you make any influence there, or you can just observe?
It's as an Island Council, you give your opinion on certain things, and you voice your opinion through your vote or your explanation. But you can imagine that on 7 members of Executive Council, if you're the only one of opposition, right, you see what you represent in terms of power, in terms of voting. So, but I do express my point of views on certain things. The only thing, though, that I regret that this government asked for, which I can understand at the beginning, because they asked for certain powers from the Island Council to the Executive Council, which would say that Executive Council would manage a good part of the Island Council powers without passing in front of the 23 members, but just between the 7 members. Which can be easier to go quicker, and I can understand that. But that's only for a time, because if you have an Island Council, it's to debate. That's the place that we debate. Right. So if we don't have those debates, why have an Island Council? And what this government did is, at the end of the year, they asked, because the first time they said, okay, we're going to ask just for 1 year to have a full power in Executive Council, which they got. But now, at the end of the year, in December, there was an Island Council in which they asked again for an extension, not for 1 year, but until the end of the mandate, by giving more power again than what they had in Executive Council, which means that the Island Council would be just there to vote budget, and that's it. So which means that we had no place of discussing, no place of debate. So when you see the critic that the opposition was doing to me in my term, stating that I was a dictator, well, what they're doing is a real sign of dictatorship. And
it's legal?
They didn't get the 5 years, but they got they asked to extend just for 1 year. But I'm sure at the end of next year, they'll be asking for another extension. So you see, sometimes when you look at things, it's how I see it is like, do what I say, but don't do what I do. and that's the message that they're giving. So sometimes when you criticize during the time certain things, you have to be very careful that you don't do worse in the time that you're in power. And as I say, when you do something and when you do an act like that by taking full power of the Island Council to put it in Executive Council, you're taking off power to the elected members, whether it's majority or whether it's opposition, to be able to debate in the council.
But is it legal to do that, though?
Well, there's a control of legality by state, and I do hope that they will have a remark to do. But at the end of the day, there are certain competence that can be transferred. But when you're the one that is preaching for all these years democracy, transparency, when you do something like this, it's everything except democracy. It's everything except transparency. That's the point. That's the point I want to bring across. Whether it's legal or not legal, that's another problem that the control of legality will rule or overrule. But what is important is in the message that we are carrying. You see, when we are during election, it is nice to say things, but it's nice to execute the things that you say. And in this case, well, when you take off competence of an organ, constitutionally speaking, you are taking off part of democracy.
No, years ago, I can't recall who I spoke with, but I understand there was plans to build a new hospital somewhere last summer.
No, it's not there were plans. The plans are in action. Actually, it started with the directors that came in during my mandate, and we work on the augmentation of facilities in the hospital, bringing in new services, bringing in a certain amount of competencies also to that hospital. And we were part of a plan that the national government put in place, and that what we were fighting with the directors of the hospital and her staff to fetch certain funds to be able to bring that investment in St. Martin, and that's in process also. And I think it was 2 Island Council passed. I think there was a deliberation concerning that the process is still continuing, which is a good thing, because health and bringing health to the population is very important, especially when you see what happened during the COVID time. But that's in process. It's always difficult because it's a lot of money. When you deal with hospital issues, it's a lot of money, but it's in progress. There's also a private clinic that is building around the area, just on top of the hospital.
Well, that's private?
Yes, okay. That's private, but that's also in process. And the hospital has a certain amount of investment that's going to be done in the future months, years to come, because really they are necessary. And it's important for us to be detached from the rest of the region and be able to give answers locally on this island to medical help.
So right now we're attached to the Guadeloupe?
For certain things, for certain emergencies that we don't have here, yes, it's either you're evacuated to Guadeloupe, either you're evacuated directly to France. Some goes to the U.S., but most of those that are social security, it's Guadeloupe, Martinique, or France.
How do you feel about things today when you look around? Because you go to the French side and it's so different, and still we have so many similarities, both French and Dutch side. There was a time when you go to the French side and you really saw things differently than the Dutch side. But today now, when you go to Marigot, most of the visitors come from cruise ships across the border to the French side. And I remember you had a very beautiful plan for the waterfront in Marigot that would have really transformed the waterfront area. Is that now off the table, or is this current new government is going to pick up on that? What's the situation there?
Well, I'm going to try and stay optimistic.
Okay.
Beginning of the year, and let's take, let's go on a good track. If you look at the St. Martin in 2017, after Irma, and you look at St. Martin today, before March 2022, you cannot say that nothing has been done. Saying that will be intellectually wrong. And for those who really have a conscience, would know the difference that I'm talking about between after Hurricane Irma and beginning of 2022 before election. A lot of work have been done. A lot of things have not been seen. There was a lot of frustration because certain things were supposed to be done before you come to another level. Like I was saying, you cannot fix the pipes for sewage, the pipes for water, which all was destroyed before Hurricane Irma, but got even more destroyed after Irma. So I took the challenge. It would cost a lot of money, but to do over everything. It was a challenge. We took that challenge. It was not popular, but it was necessary. We've done it. There was a lot of frustration because the roads were broken. As we were fixing them on the ground, we fixed, when that was finished, we fixed on top. Now, it was, again, I was saying, a process. Things are doing slowly but surely. As I said, we plant the seeds, it's time to harvest. But that's the hard work that was done for those 5 years. And you will see, yes, I'm optimistic in the sense that if they continue in that direction, the 153 million plan that was put in place for 3 years, just now I gave figures, I'm going to take them back because I realize I might say a mistake. It was 2021, 2022, 2023. The 3 years plan, and we were already working on 2024, 25, and 26. But 2021 to 2026 was a 3-year plan with 153 million invested. What does that mean? That means that yes, the population didn't see the building. Yes, probably what you're saying, Oral, that when you come on the French side versus the Dutch side, you don't see certain things back to order or being attractive like it was before. But that's because also we have rules and regulations, whether it's national but also Europeans, that we have a lot of red tape and a lot of process to go through, especially when you come out a hurricane and you had 2 years without having incomes, as I told you. So the difference between the French and the Dutch side is that those red tapes are more important on the French side. Then on the Dutch side, you have more initiative in the private sector than you have on the French side. And that also was difficult to kick back because everybody was destroyed. Hotels, restaurants, houses, I mean, call it name it. It was 90% of massive destruction. So the time to put all that back in place and reset takes some time. But today, you will see things will be catching back when you see that the roads are now getting fixed back, when you see now that certain hotels reopen, when you see that certain things that are flourishing on the island, the biddings that we put in place for the cleaning of the island, because I couldn't do no cleaning if I didn't have certain bidding. We had problem with the bidding, I would say, service.
No, I think you missed the question, actually, is that your plan to transform the waterfront, but I was coming. I was coming to that, or
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of people on this side of the island didn't like it because that was the transformation.
Yeah,
that was really going to take place.
Or I was coming to that. It's a method and it's a logic. I had to come back to phase 1 to reach to phase 2. That is not out. I mean, today I'm not the leader of government, so I can't answer in the place of those that are there today. But a lot of work was done in that direction, and I think you have to be intelligent enough to understand that you need to go to a next step if you want to go forward in this country. I'm going to recall what happened on the Dutch side. Before they had the cruise line, they had a port, and they had certain infrastructure. Yes, I understand the fright of our massive investment that in one way can be frightened, but on the other way can be beneficial, because today when you see the capacity of what the Dutch side is carrying today, and you said it just now, the French side depends today a lot on the tourism of the Dutch side, because those 2 million tourists that were coming at a certain time, when after Irma, they stopped coming. To recuperate all of that, if they didn't have the infrastructure that they had, we probably wouldn't be surviving today. So we have to be blessed on certain things that we didn't think at the beginning that it would be beneficial, but we see on a long road that the vision was to produce, I would say, a stable economy.
Vision that would have solved that problem.
My part of the vision for the French side was to be complementary with the development on the Dutch side, because you cannot have a political vision of French Saint Martin or Dutch Saint Martin without looking on the other side of the border. Okay, so when I see that the investment was most in terms of mass tourism, the biggest cruise ships, 35 today, a capacity of 35,000 person in one day if you have all boats on wharf. On the French side, we have a policy in terms of our master plan of tourism that I had voted a couple of years ago to go to the market that the Dutch side was not touching. The fact that afterwards the Dutch side wanted to have all the market, the small ships, the medium ships, and the larger ships. And that's where I find at a certain point that it was a little unfair. That's the part of the project that I didn't like, because when you're one island, you share things. We had the originality of being, I would say, an island with a vision, a little touch of French, then you have on the Dutch side a little touch of Dutch, but you have American tourism, you have a touch of cultural island. So we had to work with those conditions. So our target on tourism was more, I would say, upscale tourism. And that's why I wanted to develop the cruise line terminal for smaller cruise ships, not saying baby cruise ships, but the cruise ships that are in relation with the type of in terms of policies of tourism. The hotels was also leverage. We had after Hurricane Louis in '95, we had more than 4,552 rooms, and today we dropped to not more than 1,500. So we see that we are in a lack of hotels rooms. So our tourism is different than tourism on the Dutch side. But nevertheless, for me, I see it as one product that multiplies many products. At the time, someone was saying, one island, different flavors. Well, that's about what we need to see when we do our policies and what is our economical, I would say, feeding. And that's why I preached for the United Congress, French and Dutch, to be able to do synchronization of our policies, synchronizations of the vision of development of our territory, so that we don't walk on each one's steps, and that we do something that is complementary, and that we agreed that when one side develop one thing, the other side develop something else, so that we in the region, and I include Anguilla, I include St. Bart's, I include Sabre, because in my vision of the United Congress, I want to include and emphasize a United Congress first, French side, Dutch side, but a United Congress that would include also those neighbor islands, that is also, when you come to St. Martin, you can offer multi-product. And I think that if we go in this direction, we will be able to accomplish so much more.
But I think what you miss, what I'm trying to say, is that when you came with that proposal for the waterfront, which would have transformed the French side, which would have made it a lot, in my opinion, a lot better. Our forces on this side of the island, the Dutch side, saw that as a huge threat. And you might not want to speak about it, but it did happen. And not only forces on the French side, but the Dutch side. And it's unfortunate. And that's what I was getting to, because today now, if that was realized, we wouldn't be where we are today. And I think maybe you know it better than I do. But you can't have an island where one side won it all. I was in Miami a few years ago at a cruise conference. And when I spoke with the people from the French side, the story that they told me about the way they were treated by St. Martin, Dutch St. Martin, and this whole thing about competition. We don't want competition. Look, there's time to compete, and there's time to work together. I think we've got to get over this thing of always competing. Unfortunately, I see it all the time, even during COVID time. This idea that we on the Dutch side feel that we are better and doing things better, and it's not. It's crazy. We all one island. We have to work together, and that's not happening.
Well, that's why I say, Oral, without going into detail, as you said, of that part of the conflict, but I will always keep, as far as that's concerned, I will always keep a clear mind upon what we need in terms of cooperation, because what you're translating there is the disorder in terms of cooperation. And that's why the greediness, whether one side or the other side, will have an end when you put everyone in the same basket and we take decisions together. You know why? Because, as I said, when you sign an MOU, it lasts the time of the MOU, which means the time of the elected person, whether he's president or prime minister, for 4 years or for 5 years. And after, another one comes and you change the MOU. When you have a Congress, you vote laws, you vote regulations. And there, in order to annul that, you have to re-vote laws, new laws, which is totally different and harder to change. And if we have that unity, because the unity is not just choosing a flag. That's why I was, on that part, I had things to say. It's not that we were against, but the way it was done, it was not democratic. And then the consequences of it, the result that we want out of it, is not cooperation. It's not because we have a flag that means that we're going to do cooperation and we're going to work better together and everything is going to be nice and beautiful. What is important is the action, not the words, not the symbols. What is important is the action we put in place. What do we really do? What do we really want? From the time I'm talking about this United Congress, and I'm sorry to come back over it, we call it whatever we want. That's not a point. Who wants to take the paternity of it? That's not a point. The reality is that we got to face that reality and say the truth of what things are. If we don't put actions in place to have a real cooperation and have a study policy on what we're going to do on tourism, what we're going to do on electricity, what we're going to do with the water, what we're going to do with the road network. Those are things, are burdens that going to arm this island, whether it's the French side or whether it's the Dutch side. And if we don't take common decision, I spent 5 years negotiating with the Dutch side for the sewage plan in Coal Bay, in French Quarter. And that has been negotiated also with the previous government before me for another 5 years. These things are not tolerable because those are the paying straight the consequences is the population. So it's not a matter of who's going to win. We all will gain out of a transparent policy in terms of our, I would say, cooperation. Immigration, which is not our competence, but state competence. Security are also requirements for this island in terms of tourism because it's 95% of our economy. So overall, we can turn it in all directions. If we don't have the means to put in place this common policy in terms of cooperation, we will go nowhere, and every 5 years we will be talking about the exact same thing. So coming back on the waterfront project, which I don't want to run from, and you know that was something that was very important to my eyes. Unfortunately, after Irma, other priority came up, and that's why that part slowed down. That doesn't mean we didn't continue the work. But after Irma, I had to redo the whole studies because Irma changed the configuration of the currents in the water, the sand that moved. By us, if we want to build a bridge, before we put in the first pile, it takes us 2 to 3 years with studies, just before we put the first pile. You know why? Because the environmental ministry will say, what about this little fish? Will you be disturbing this little fish coming to eat this special food in this area? This grain of sand will not be there anymore. I mean, protection of environment, protection of the lives in the sea. Yes, but that's constrained for us in terms of development. So we were obliged to redo a good part of the studies, and that's why it took a little long. Of course, everybody would say, yeah, he put it aside. No, he did not put it aside. He's just doing things with a method because there's rules and there's regulations. Now, the port, which I gift the authority to continue developing that sector, continue working on it. And I'm still part and member of the board of the port, and with the elected members that are there, we're doing a good work because process is maintained. We are continuing in that direction, and I must say that I'm staying optimistic with what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing, that things will be done. But it's going to be a necessity Oral, to have, when you finish development on land, and that's why I was going to repair during the 5 years the interior part of Marigot before we face the exterior part, which is the seaside. You have to fix inside before you fix outside, and that's why that master plan of 153 million included what you're saying, the refacial of the waterfront. It's also inside of Marigot. You saw in Lowtown, St. James, all that was process that was put in place to be able to have something decent on our territory. We needed internet. We put in high speed internet on the entire French side, from Oyster Pond to Lowlands. And we work with the private entities, whether it's MSR, whether it's Dauphin, whether it's Orange. The fiber is there. Now the operators are the one delivering. And we needed also, we needed the infrastructure to be able to have an island that is clean, that is safe roads, etc., etc. But you cannot do that, all that, just in a click of a finger. Because when you build your house, you have to find the finance, and you cannot put a block before you get the finance to build the house. Right. And as I said, that was the challenge for the 4 or 5 years. That's why today, during my campaign, I was saying we planted the seeds, but the harvest was coming after, and the harvest is now.
Right. In case you've just joined us, I'm Oral Gibbs, and Oral Gibbs Live is speaking with former president of St. Martin, President Daniel Gibbs. When we come back, we'll continue speaking with him right here on Oral Gibbs Live on Hot 99.9 FM radio station, YouTube, and Facebook. We'll right back. Please stay with us.
Make use of WIB mobile banking with easy access and direct usage of face recognition, PIN code, or fingerprint. Download WIB mobile banking app and make your transaction from anywhere at any time. For more information, visit wib-bank.net/quick-login.
Well, if you want to advertise on Hot 99.9 FM radio station, that's Hot 99.9 FM radio station, give us a call at 520-6070. That's 520-6070. Hot 99.9 FM radio station with the best music on the island. We play from jazz, reggae, soul, pop, you name it, you'll hear it on Hot 99.9 FM radio station. I'm here speaking with former president of St. Martin, President Daniel Gibbs. We're here speaking with him. We're almost out of time, but we still have another 12 minutes to go. And, it's amazing. I'm going to go back because I think it's important for me to go back a little bit here. Could you imagine, I was saying this to someone the other day, what would have happened if, because when you took office, we had Hurricane Irma, 3 months after, right?
Yes. I took office in March. I had to vote my budget in 2 weeks. And April, May, June, July, August, September. 4 months.
Irma was the worst hurricane of the century. In terms of recording hurricanes, the most powerful. Then we had, after 100 years, COVID-19.
Before we had a 4-month strike in 2018, January to March, April. 4 months in the midst of Hurricane Irma.
No, and then we had COVID. Then you had
strikes.
The
PPRN.
Yeah.
The blockage.
Right. You're going to write
strikes.
a book?
Huh?
You're not going to write a book about this?
Maybe one day. Maybe one day. So some people say you don't want to open a crisis management company. Why not? No.
But it's
to be honest, Oral, it was an experience, and I never regret what I do. As I say, as today, maybe I have frustration today not to be able to accomplish what I planted with my team the whole 4 years, but it was challenging, It was not easy. When I see the result, I'm proud of what we've done. That permits today the island to reboost because a lot of has been done. But it was a lot of experience also, and everything you have to take, in every negative you have positive. So I took the challenge to see only the positive part, not forgetting the negative, to be able to correct your mistakes. Because sometimes probably certain decision that we were convinced that would be the best decision, maybe politically, was not the best decision because not popular, not the time to do it. But again, I didn't manage this collectivity, and I always say this shock sometimes. I never managed this collectivity because people wanted to see this or that. I managed this collectivity because, and doing certain things, even if they were unpopular, because it had to be done if we wanted things to change. And I always told my team, no matter what it's going to cost me, if this is what we have to do because it's for the surviving of the collectivity, because we really want things to change, we said we're going to bring change. But you don't come and say you're going to do change and just do the things that are going to be popular. Change is also doing things that are not popular because they're good for the collectivity. As I know, the 5 years I was there, my budget was never rejected. Although all the complications that we have, although all the difficulties. So somewhere, somehow, the decision that we were taking when we restructure the collectivity, when we negotiate with the unions, for the mistakes that was done in the past for the employees, we did a restructuration plan in 2018. After those 4 months of striking, we took engagement with the unions to say, okay, we cannot pay everything one time because it's going to fragilize our budget. So we try to do installment. We started with the employees that were closer to retirement, because if they went in retirement before the plan, they could lose the benefit of it. So we preferred work with urgency, and all that in discussion with the union, so that we take the good decision or the decision together with how we start. The concept of what we do, we decide that, we sign a protocol on that, but when we start with who we start, that I left the leverage to the unions to decide that. And that's why today I'm surprised when I see the new team arrive and say, oh, we're going to pay everything. How could you pay a certain amount of things without looking at the leverage of your budget? And then at the same time, you're going to go and see France and say, oh, you need money. France is going to say, your Article 74, you're in charge financially and fiscally. So if you take decision in your budget to do a certain amount of things, you have to take charge for the investment that you want. Otherwise, you have to do restriction. I was in force of doing 5 years of restriction to be able to have compulsory budget with state, because as I say, anyone could tell you anything, but state will never give you money if they don't put conditions. And you can stand, but you won't get a cent. So there are certain things that we were supposed to go about in employment. There were certain categories we couldn't employ anymore because we had to put down the what we call a masse salariale, the charges, the employee charges. We had to reduce. We had to reduce in our spending on a general base, and that was a constraint that the state put when they brought certain prefets to monitor the subvention that the state was giving us. So that puts us in a difficult situation where we didn't have totally the means to be able to operate. And that people didn't see that, but that's the hustle that we went through. And you know why I got all those problems with the law, with justice, which I came out totally free? Because I wasn't saying yes to state, because I wasn't the one that was giving everything they wanted, because I told them we were elected by a population. The population is wanting a result according to the vision that we had, and this is what we're going to deliver, no matter what it's going to take me. So if I had to go to justice, I went to justice, and I came out free out of all what happened. So yes, a lot of passion still for my island. Regrets, we always have regrets, mostly frustration, but still remaining optimist that things could happen. We have on this island the luxury of having two different entities in a location that is a privileged location. I say the triangle of gold between Saint Martin, Anguilla, and Saint Bart's, and we have to emphasize on that. But before, we need to do our homework on our island.
I gotta ask you a question, maybe trivial, but for some people important. What was the salary of the president of St. Martin?
€5,000.
Five what?
€1,000.
5,000
Yes.
euros?
Before €5,000, a little less because you have certain tax deduction.
The Prime Minister of St. Martin, man, makes quadruple that. And
That's another difference.
In guilders, okay? It's like
In guilders.
22,000 guilders, members of parliament.
Yeah, that's about $12,000.
Yeah. And
Which is dollars and euros are equivalent today.
yeah, exactly. And so your deputies, what they got, like the first vice president?
The deputy is, I think, something like 8,000 euros, and the senator is kind of yes, more, because you have two type of fundings. You have the indemnity that is given to you, which is approximately 6,000, and then you have the spending that you can spend that brings you to 8,000, between 8 and 10,000, let's say. Voilà. Yeah, if your question is it more? Yes, it is.
More on which
being a deputy or being a senator.
Okay, yeah. All right. So I'm surprised that the president only got 5,000 euros.
Well, that's the law. That's why you see, when you do this, you have to be passionate, because the blows that you take, the stress that you take for the pay that you get, which is not a pay, which is an indemnity, which gives you time to have other occupations. But as I said in my mandate, I wanted to give it a full mandate, so I didn't do anything else.
Okay.
I didn't do anything else than being the president of the collectivity.
So give you time that you could take care of your other business, etc.
Yeah, they give you that liberty of being able to do that. But frankly, with what I was doing, what I had to handle as competencies, I didn't have time to take care of another business. So I was involved in nothing, absolutely nothing, except the business of the collectivity.
So now you can go back to your notary practice?
Well, I'm rebuilding my professional life, yes.
Yeah. And so but you still got to write that book, either.
Yeah. Maybe one day, as I say, it's not the first priority. I store everything.
I think it's good, because then people will get to see and hear from the person who went through a unique experience in the history of St. Martin when it comes to administration on the French side. Really unique.
And that's why I was telling you, every time there was a new experience. When I started in politics, it was with Albert Fleming at the Commune time as deputy mayor, and after it was vice president with Louis Constant Fleming, with the new collectivity from 2008 to 2008, and then after, in 2012, I became first deputy of Saint Martin and Saint Barthélemy, and then 2017 president. So every period was a new experience. So gaining all that brings you with a vision that is different than what it was at the beginning. Certain things has changed in my way of seeing, in my way of thinking, but the principle stays and remains the same. There's a method to do things. There's a method that we use. There's a method to be more organized, transparent, and democratic. Yeah, because Democrat means something else.
So how's the relationship now between you and the current president?
No, on a human, as I say, on a human side, I have absolutely no problem with no one. On a political side, I have my differences, which is totally normal. Everyone have their point of view, their vision of things, so that's normal. And I try to express this when they give me the liberty of doing so. But I have no personal problem with no one. Politically, is another ball game.
I know we don't have a lot of time, but I have to ask you this: if you could do 3 things now that you think is so important for French St. Martin, can you name it?
Well, I would say it's more than 3 things, because they're already engaged. I would say better in the concept, continue what has been engaged with the program that we put in place. Not for the fact of saying that we put that program, because overall, you have to understand, in the French system, going and searching for funding is not just taking your suitcase and going to Paris and asking the minister, hey, I want some money. No, it's preparing projects. It's going to seek to be able to sell those projects to get the finance, whether it's in Europe, whether it's in France, and to see in your budget how you can compulse also with part of your budget, because if collectivity doesn't give finance, you can't get Europe or states funding. So I would suggest that all the policies that we put in place in terms of that program of 153 million can go forward. And that, you know why? Because if not, time you set back to a new project, you might lose fundings. I'm starting to hear the song that, because of Gibbs, we lose money. No. Because you didn't put in place a certain amount of things that we program on a certain period, but you didn't want to continue, that you're losing money. But the time will come where I will answer to the senatress who said some false report. I didn't want to intervene at the time because I was not audible, because they won the election and there was a euphoria and everybody was in this mood. So I prefer leave things pass. But in due time, I will answer and I will interact on that part where the senator said that it's because of our government that we lost money. And of course, people take that for granted. But I will give the real explanation, because, talking is cheap. Paperwork is facts. And I will confirm that.
Yeah. So I hope that we can have you back later in the year, and maybe you can give us some more explanation on that too.
It's always a pleasure. I think, Oral, and when you get too technical, it's good to have a discussion on a typical subject, so that you go into detail of it, so that people really understand. Because the most, I would say that one of the things that I got as an experience is that when people don't have the good information, they speculate in their thinking and they assume things. But when they have the right ingredients, they take the right decisions. And I think where I have a mea culpa to do in the fall is maybe a mislack of my communication in terms of explanation and explication. But time flies so fast. Look at this. A year is already gone. Wow. And when you think about it, we were in election not too long ago. Wow. So that's something that maybe I would correct. Maybe I would correct in the past. Read my message. Maybe I would correct in the past.
Anyway, we have time.
Sorry, in the future.
And we have 30 seconds, all yours in closing.
Yeah, no, I think that at this period of the time of the year, I would like to wish the population a happy new year. As we always say, time sometimes can be difficult, and I ask and I pray that you have a lot of courage to be able to face your difficulties that you're going through. Those that are sick, health is important, and I wish a lot of health on this island. That also on a personal base, but I extend it on an island base, I would say. And joy, of course, happiness, being and having that in your heart, with and towards the others. I think we need an island with peace. I think we need an island with a lot of love, because times can be hard. People can be in very difficult, I would say, condition, and that will be a priority for 2023. Especially when you see what's going on in the rest of the world, it will have an effect on us. I do hope problem will be solved in Europe quickly, but the way things goes is going to be kind of complicated. So, St. Martin, I wish you all the best of courage again, of health, love, and prosperity.
All right, so I want to thank you again, President Gibbs, for being my guest on the program, and much success, you and your family, this new year. All right?
Thank you very much.
All right, and that's it for now. I'll see you next time. Till then, take care. Bye.